All right, let's dive in. Today, we are cracking open the playbook of a true marketing legend, Dan Kennedy. We're going to figure out how to create messages that people literally can't ignore.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever put together what you thought was the perfect email or the perfect ad, only for it to be met with, well, crickets? It is so frustrating, right? Especially in the world we live in now, which is just unbelievably noisy. You know you have something valuable to offer, but man, how do you get anyone to actually stop and listen?
You know, Dan Kennedy had this perfect, kind of gritty way of putting it. He said people's pipes are clogged with junk. And he's so right. Just think about it for a second. Back in the 1970s, the average person might have gotten what? A few pieces of junk mail a day. Today, that's nothing. We're getting hit with a fire hose, hundreds of emails, endless social media pings, videos. The bar for just getting noticed is higher than it's ever been. And that reality sets up our first big idea here. We are in a constant, non-stop battle for attention. And in this fight, you can't just cross your fingers and hope someone sees you. Nope, you have to command their attention. You have to literally force them to stop scrolling and listen to what you have to say.
So why is this battle so incredibly tough? Well, it's not just the insane volume of messages, it's also that it has never, ever been easier for someone to just hit delete. And because it's cheaper than ever to get into marketing, there's more competition. But here's the real kicker. People are actively trying to avoid temptation. It's like when you're on a diet and you deliberately avoid driving past the donut shop. That's what consumers are doing. They're building up these mental walls to protect themselves from anything that might make them spend money.
Okay, so if it's a battle, how in the world do you win? Well, Kennedy says the secret is making this one fundamental shift in your strategy. And honestly, it's a shift that most marketers get completely backward. And here it is. This is the whole thing right here. The common mistake, the thing most people do, is they start with their product. They say, I've got these red bricks to sell. Now, who can I convince to buy them? That is just tough sledding. The winning strategy flips that completely on its head. It starts by asking, who is the person most likely right now to want my red bricks? See? Once you know exactly who you're talking to, creating the perfect message is suddenly the path of least resistance. The key insight here is to stop shouting into the void and instead focus all your energy on the people who are actually responsive. A really powerful example of this comes from Pastor Rick Warren. He wrote in a marketing book that churches are way more effective when they reach out to people who are going through very specific life events. You know, things like marriage problems or a sudden health crisis in the family. Now, this isn't about manipulation. It's about being relevant. It's about meeting people exactly where they are with a message that speaks directly to what they're going through right now.
All right, so we know who we're talking to, but what do we actually say to them? This is where Dan Kennedy's 4-key framework is just so brilliant. It's a super simple but incredibly powerful structure for building a message that actually gets results. Think of these 4 keys as your roadmap. It's pretty straightforward. First, you need a powerful way to get that initial head turn. You got to grab them. Then, you present your message in a way that's relevant to them. Third, you have to explain why they should choose you, and only you. That's your unique selling proposition. And finally, you close the loop with an offer that's just too good to refuse.
Now for that initial head turn, you've got a whole toolbox to work with. You could use drama or fear of loss. That's a massive motivator for people. You could frame your message like it's breaking news. You could make a big, giant, bold promise. You could use a celebrity. Or hey, you could even just use pure entertainment or a funny gimmick. The point is, you have to do something to earn the right to deliver the rest of your message. I absolutely love this example of profound specificity. Just imagine for a second that you're a one-legged golfer who also has asthma and is missing a thumb and has bad vision. I know, it's a lot. But then an envelope shows up in your mail, and on the outside it says, if you're a one-legged golfer with asthma, you couldn't possibly ignore that, right? That letter would literally leap out of the pile because it's so hyper-relevant to you and probably nobody else on your street. That's the power of specificity. Okay, so once you have their attention, you need a rock-solid USP. This is the thing that stops you from being just another option, just another commodity. Your USP has to answer the single most important question in your prospect's mind. Without a strong one, you might just be a market maker. That's where you spend all your money on ads to get people interested in your type of product, only for them to turn around and buy it from your competitor. Your USP makes you the only logical choice. And that brings us to the engine of the whole operation, the irresistible offer. This is that fourth and final key, and it's the thing that really turns a curious browser into a paying customer.
So according to Kennedy, every truly great offer has 3 core ingredients. First, there's the stuff. That's the product, the service, plus any bonuses you throw in, all packaged up to sound as appealing as possible. Second, there's the price, which has to be framed like it's an absolute steal. And third, there's urgency, a really compelling reason why they have to act on this immediately.
And here's the psychological test for your pricing. The goal isn't just to be a good deal. It needs to be a total no-brainer. The value you're offering has to be so ridiculously, overwhelmingly clear that the customer honestly feels like they'd be an idiot not to grab it this second. You know, before you come to your senses and raise the price. All right, we've come to the final step. And this one is so simple, it is absolutely shocking how often people mess it up. After you've done all this hard work, you've grabbed their attention, you've made this incredible offer, you have to give them crystal clear instructions.
Kennedy tells this great story about it. He had an appointment at some business he'd only been to one time before. So naturally, he calls them up to ask for directions. Seems simple enough, right? And this was the response he got. The person on the phone just said, "Oh, we're just right across the street from the Nestle plant." She just assumed he knew where this giant plant was. And then she actually got frustrated with him and said, "Why don't you just MapQuest it?" She made it difficult. She made it confusing. She was full of assumptions.
The lesson here is so simple but so profound. Look, if you want a customer's money, you are not entitled to make them work for it. You have to tell them exactly what to do step by step by step. Make the path to buying from you completely foolproof, because giving clear, complete instructions will almost always boost your response rate.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Looking at this entire framework, from finding your who to grabbing attention to your USP, your offer, and giving clear instructions, what's the single weakest link in your own messaging right now? Seriously, think about it, because finding and fixing just that one thing could absolutely change everything for you. Thanks for tuning in.